Okay, folks, so this is Acid Roots, and I'm going to talk to you guys a bit about Slipknot's first couple singles. And what those are songs released to the radio, and I felt like doing this just because, there's going to be more of that on this channel, and I wanted to talk about some music other than in a review format. So I figured what better way to do it than discuss the first couple songs that Slipknot came out with. There were five of them, but then in actuality there were six. If I had to guess how many songs off of Slipknot's first album got airplay, I definitely would say more than three or four or five. But as far as the singles, there were just not that many released. So I am going to throw Surfacing in there because I heard that that was almost released as one, but we didn't get to it. So the only one that I'm not going to cover is Heretic Anthem, and I will probably make a sequel to this, and I'll get into Volume 3 and a few other ones. So in the early 2000s, Slipknot went on tour, went on Ozfest, did a bunch of things, and it culminated in 1999, but then it also carried over to the early 2000s as well. And the big thing was it just had to do with the singles, and one of the big singles at first was Wait and Bleed, and this came out, first single. They were on tour, they went nuts, and so this is what this song is about. Really, I have listened to this song quite a bit. I love the hook in it. It's really addictive. It's definitely a catchy song, and it's also one that is pretty close to being a radio single. It's about as close as I think Slipknot would get, and just the melody of it is a lot better than pretty much most of the songs on that album from 1999. So the song is about a man who dreams of bleeding, and then that becomes a reality. Now the thing about it is the lyrics, you may not be able to catch this as easily. I think definitely it's one of those that you're going to have to look up the information in order to find out what exactly the song's about. And I've noticed that with songs, you look up the lyrics to them and they're kind of convoluted more than you would imagine. But once you do it and you find the song meaning, you look at what the band's actually said about it. So it's about a man, it's called Wait and Bleed. It's about someone who's having, bleeding, and it becomes a reality. And so I don't know where that idea came from. I'm kind of curious as to what made that sort of thing happen. If the man that they're talking about is a celebrity himself, and he is, losing his sanity because he's becoming something that, that's kind of the strange part about it. You listen more to the lyrics and you wonder what's going on. But it still is an addictive song, and I do appreciate it. The next one is Spit It Out, and that was the second single off of Slipknot. This one is a diss song. You think that's only rap, but this is a diss song for radio stations who were preventing Slipknot from being aired. And in a lot of ways, I would have probably done the same thing just because, it can't. There are some times when folks do not want you to get something and they try to prevent you from getting there. So you have to fight twice as hard to not only reach people, but get the people who get you to reach people to reach them. So that is twice the battle in that sort of situation. I will say that Slipknot's pretty gnarly, but that does not necessarily mean that they do not deserve to have a chance. And I bet they definitely were feeling that in 1998, 97 before they came out. It just depends upon when they came out, because they were working on this album in the 90s, and there's actually more than just drummer and guitar and that sort of thing. I think it's a larger group in the band. So it's one thing to know. It's a hot song. Definitely, both of these songs, considering that they have as much airplay as they do, they are worthwhile. Definitely, they're not weak rock songs. They're definitely ones that you can hear and I just recommend it. It's a song. If I was used to somebody, I would probably play that song as opposed to Wait and Bleed. These are songs that need to be heard versus the main and lead singles. So the third song is Surfacing. This one was a little bit harder for me to put a tab on just because it wasn't really released as a single, but it was supposed to be. If there would have been better promotion, it probably would have gotten that way. But, who knows how much they were plagued and what was going on. But this one is about their views on how things are going and how they respond to them. So what that means is it's what they are thinking and their response to how they're being treated. And, of course, it's not going to be, polite and neat and count. It's going to be really. It's another vicious song. This is actually one of the most fiery songs on here. I think Spit It Out is a little bit more vicious, but this one is a little bit more wild. That's one thing to consider, is just be paying attention to those. So with that, I mean, three fat songs that hadn't made a lot of noise. I look on Spotify and this song is actually pretty popular. I'd stand to reason that the Slipknot album was actually extremely well put together. I mean, it went double platinum, which not every album does that, but also in the same idea is, for rock music, this was probably one of the winning albums of the year 1999. And it just stands to reason because, certain albums will have a hit single, but they won't go platinum. It might get a second one that kind of is a moderate success, and then a third one that just barely charts, but that'll still be considered a success or something. It's good to see. Spit It Out did not chart, but it still managed to get airplay. So this is the kind of thing that goes on with it. I mean, I think Slipknot really had some great songs starting out. I would have liked to see, I'm still digesting their first album. But then we have Iowa, and the thing about that was they had reached success, and as that continued, you have to, of course, follow it up within a respective window. Folks are not going to wait 4 years for your second album. So I think, after about mid 2000, when their first album wore out, they toured. They actually went on several tours in between. But the thing was we got Left Behind. And that one is just about change and losing friends. So it kind of has to do with the fact that things were not the way that they were, or they're not the way that they're wanted to be, and it's not necessarily the best attitude towards that. So that's one thing. It's a good pace for the song, but if you notice, there hasn't been, all these songs have, themes to them. It's not just, I'm going nuts. Like, I listen to Limp Bizkit and it's a little bit different, but it's not, it's not necessarily that any of the two are, you get what I'm saying. So that song, I'm listening to it. I'm getting used to Iowa as it stands, but I do appreciate the song. It's another one for Slipknot's catalog. And the one after that, the second single, was My Plague. And this one has a riff. I couldn't find the song meaning for this one, so I had to kind of go off of it with my own speculation. It just seems to be like a rift with people, just a rift, having problems with someone and thoroughly not enjoying that. So, as far as a lot of these songs are angry, but it's not so much, it just doesn't feel like it's petty. That's really the thing about it. It actually feels like adults that are getting mad, not necessarily that sort of thing. But then, the reasoning of it, it's pretty, I think you'll like it. So these are all 5 of these are songs that are worth your time. And, considering Slipknot, the big thing about them is as far as charting, it really takes a song like Wait and Bleed or Duality to get their show on the road. And I feel like, that might have been a problem, but then, they have such a good fan base that it's still, I think they're still able to do it. That's about the only problem is I'm still learning the history. I definitely want to throw in a few more facts and opinions in this, but it's just unfortunate because, the knowledge that I know. So what I would say is, each of these are worthwhile songs, and, as far as Slipknot's early career, they definitely managed to set foot and do it well. That's like the most exciting part is the release of these songs is pretty interesting. I think most of these do not have a problem with charting, and it's good to have those immediate go-to songs. But the best part is that there's actually more to the album than just these. But I'm just trying to figure out if I can recommend them as much as I can recommend songs like Nookie and songs like Ba with the Ba and songs like Wait and Bleed and uh, just various other ones. The Korn song, Freak on a Leash. All of these that are staples in rap metal. The only problem with it is there are definite highlights in the rap metal genre, but at the same time, once you get past like the top 10 or top 15, it's more like you're a fan. And that's the only problem that I've seen to have had, is it feels more like you don't want to feel like you're obsessing over it, but you just have to diversify, and if you don't want to do that, that's kind of the issue. So people will say, we'll pick the 10 best songs of rap metal and we'll stay with that, versus the fact that there's well over 10 or 20 or even 40 good rap metal songs. That's about the only thing, is some of these songs that I've listed may not fit the they may not fit the top 10 or top 20 of all-time best rap metal songs, but they're still pretty solid if you want to seek them out. And so, that just stands to reason, but I'm still learning about the history of new metal and that sort of thing, so I do want to continue to supply these. But, this is just one thing to consider.